Well, today, huge day around the NFL, as today was cutdown day. Every team in the league had to pair their roster from 90-man camp rosters to the 53-man active rosters, plus a 17, well, it's really more of a 16-man practice squad with the one international designation. This year, I think the Niners international player, last year it was Alfredo Gutierrez, who was a great guy. This year, it's Isaac Alarcon, who played with the Cowboys, and if you might even remember him from Hard Knocks. He's a little bit better player than the players the Niners have had at this position in the past. I think he's a little bit better than Gutierrez. I think Alarcon potentially could play in the league, where Gutierrez I think was kind of maybe a little bit of a stretch to play. But I don't want to say anything bad about my guy because I really did love Alfredo. But today was a big day for the Niners. They had to pare their roster down, and they did. And Raj is here to talk about it. Raj, biggest surprise of the day for you as the Niners pared their roster down? What was the big surprise for you?
Man, I honestly was surprised there's a couple, but Ronnie Bell making they kept 7 receivers. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
7. I mean, I know the Ayuk situation's kind of like probably making them say we might need an extra receiver just in case. But Ronnie Bell, but then I look at it, he's a good blocker. Kyle likes blockers, so it makes sense. If you can't do anything and you can block, Kyle will like you. So I feel like that was a big surprise to me. They kept 2 tight ends, only 2 tight ends, and Jake Tongas was number 2. That was crazy.
I did, and I want to take a victory lap on that one, but man, I did a video about the Niner cutdown, going into the cutdown, and I said the Niners will go with 2 tight ends, and
you did.
Man, I can't tell you the number of people who came out of the woodwork and like, well, first of all, this entire video has no credibility because anybody who knows the Niners knows that they will not be going with 2 tight ends, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But you know what? The tight end crew they had this summer sucked. They were really, really weak. Braden Willis can't block anybody. Cam Latu was a terrible third-round draft choice.
Terrible.
Tongas outplayed them, and he's not very good as a blocker. And Pline, they just decided to pickle jar him and get him to the practice squad. I think he's almost a lock for their practice squad.
Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, the first practice squad commitment has already been announced. It's Tay Martin.
Martin
is coming back to the practice squad. But just looking at some of the players they cut today, I'd love to see, first of all, you can put some veterans on your practice squad. Mm-hmm. So, you don't have to have all rookies. I wouldn't mind seeing, like Ben Barch, Chris Hubbard, T.Y. McGill, Trent Taylor,
yes.
Tracy Walker III, Rock Ya-Sin.
Yeah.
And then from the younger group, I would love to see an Evan Anderson, a Jalen Graham, a Jarrett Kingston.
Yes.
Maybe a Jalen Mahoney, a Tanner Mordecai, a Drake Nugent, a Mason Pline, a Cody Schrader, a Samuel Womack. Those are the guys I'd like to see on the practice squad. But I think a lot of these guys are going to get picked off. Like, I think Womack is going to get claimed by somebody else. I think he's going to go somewhere else. I think Cam Latu is going to get picked up by somebody else.
I hope he does, because this tight end group, Larry, was so bad this offseason.
They were bad, yeah.
Again, Jake Tongas wasn't horrible, but it's not like I didn't think he was going to make tight end 2. That's why I was surprised. Like, well, I thought Eric Saubert was going to be tight end 2, so I was a little surprised. I think most of the guys that you mentioned would probably come back on the practice squad unless they get picked up. Jalen Graham, Larry, we talked about this before we started. I was surprised. I thought he was good enough to make the roster. I don't think he's going to survive waivers. Somebody in the NFC West, probably the Rams, are going to pick him up, and he's going to be a starter there. That's the bad thing about the Niners, because they're so good at drafting linebackers and developing them. You're going to have an odd man out. And it's like Tatum Bethune was a dog in the preseason. You got to reward him. He was your 7th-round pick. Last year, Jalen Graham was a late-round pick. So it's like if the rookie this year outplayed him, and D. Winters, they liked him more, he was the odd man out. And Curtis Robinson had a heck of a camp. You can't get rid of him.
He had a great camp. But the thing is, my whole thing is, what's the upside potential? I mean, Curtis Robinson had a great camp. I don't doubt that. I wouldn't try to take anything away from him. He did have a great camp.
Yeah.
But is Curtis Robinson have more long range potential from scrimmage than Jalen Graham? I
I
don't
don't think
think
so.
so.
I don't think so.
I
I
don't
think it's
think
just because
so.
he played so good. It's like they wanted to reward him for his good play. I get it, and he was there last year. They develop him, but
I
Jalen
knew
Graham,
Graham was in trouble, by the way.
he's
When
good, man.
I knew Graham was in trouble. The other day I asked um the new DC Sorensen. I
Hmm.
said, what do you think? Tell me about Graham. I said, what does Graham need to do to ascend to the first team and win the starter's job? And instead of saying what he needed to do to ascend to the starter's job, all Sorensen said was it's going to be a very difficult cut at linebacker.
Oh, the writing was on the wall then, there, Larry. So you kind of knew it was coming. But to me, it's a
Yeah, man.
good
At that point,
cut.
I'm like, Jalen Graham's done, and
He's good.
I think it's short sighted to go for Flanagan Fowles and Curtis Robinson over Jalen Graham. I think that was very very short sighted.
I agree.
I'm a big believer in Jalen Graham,
I
and
am
I think
too.
Graham's gonna. I hope they can get Graham back. To me, there's a lot of pretty mediocre players, right? And mediocre players, you know what? They're like I'd like to see Ben Barch and Chris Hubbard and Saubert and these guys come back and be on the practice squad or maybe
Yeah.
even be on the active roster. But you're not winning the Super Bowl because of these guys.
No, you're not.
But
I
but some of these younger players like Womack, Cody Schrader, Pline, Nugent, Mordecai, some of these younger Jalen Graham, I think Evan Anderson, you may be winning a Super Bowl because of somebody on that list eventually. So I don't know. Personally, I I'm a personnel guy, and always take the long range view. I'm not a coach. See,
I agree.
I would be the guy arguing for Evan Anderson. I'd be the guy arguing for Jalen Graham, and the coaches are the ones who are going to be arguing for the guys who are, playing some role on special teams or help you win today. I'm more concerned about building, a, a team that's going to be, good into the future. And I don't like these specialist players as much as the guys who I'd rather have a young ascending player that is going to play from scrimmage than a career special teamer. That's all I'm
I
saying.
agree, and I think that's again with Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. I knew my prediction. I was like, he's gonna make it, and he's probably gonna take a spot from either. I thought it was gonna be Curtis Robinson, Bethune, or Graham, and it ended up being Graham, who was the odd man out because Demetrius Flanagan Fowles is best friends with Fred Warner. They got a pact. Fred Warner said, "Hey, you're my guy. You're gonna make this roster because you're good at special teams." He's not a good linebacker, but because he's buddies with Fred Warner, he makes the roster over a guy like Jalen Graham. Although I think a lot of those guys will come back on the Niners
I hope
practice
so.
squad, and they'll have a good practice squad because at the end of the day, you need good depth. Like I like their roster, and you have to realize those guys that we mentioned, we love them, but are they better than the guys on the 53-man roster?
Well, I guess my question and the debate I'd want to have, if Sorensen were sitting right here with us, is who's the better player between like Bethune and who was a rookie this year and Graham? Who's the better player? Now, Bethune has had less time in the defense and made more plays this summer. I mean, Bethune was the Niners' leading tackler in the preseason. He
Yeah,
showed up at the football all summer long. It was really quite impressive. In some ways, I framed it as, Flanagan Fowles versus Graham, but it probably really in reality was more Bethune
you know,
versus Graham. Between Bethune and Winters and Graham, they probably went into that camp going, you know what, two of the three of these guys can make it, not all three. And Graham's the odd man out, but I hope they can get him back because
I do
I think
too.
he's an incredible talent. I really do.
I
I loved him at Purdue, and I think he's going to be a really good starting linebacker for somebody for a
Yeah.
number of years.
If it's not the Niners, someone's taking them tomorrow. I just have this feeling, this inkling, like the Rams, because they trade away their linebackers. They're probably like, oh
They did.
look,
They traded Ernest Jones away
we can get a
today.
starting linebacker for nothing, and it's gonna piss us off because he is good enough to start. But the problem is the Niners have such good linebackers. It's like a good problem to have in a way, but it's also like, dang, we're giving other people good players because we develop them so good. It is frustrating, but you can't deny Tatum Bethune because if they would have cut him, there's no way he would have cleared waivers. That guy was the 6th leading tackler in the entire NFL this preseason, Larry. That guy was a dog. He was all over the ball.
He was
So
awesome, man. He was
so
awesome. And my question is, who runs better between Bethune and Graham? And is Bethune's success that we saw this summer fool's gold? Are they going to put him isolated in a pass coverage moment with an athletic player in space and just kind of force him off the field? Can he run well enough to play pass coverage, or is he simply a first and second down plugger linebacker that has to be taken off the field on third downs and can be that would be my question. I mean, he's obviously good against the run.